I'm Jake Higgins, the executive editor of the Times Leader, here with Ed Lewis, our crime reporter. Ed, you had an interesting interview over at the prison with Patrick Russin. You've covered him quite a bit. Why don't you share a little bit about what people can expect in the Sunday paper this week?
Yeah, Patrick Russin, he's been in court again. He's a familiar name here in Luzerne County. He was linked to the decades-long story of Hugo Selenski, that criminal case that actually began in 2002. Patrick Russin became a co-defendant with Hugo Selenski. My interview with Patrick, it was his very first interview where he actually talked about that case. All for decades he was quiet, but he gave me a 2-hour interview face to face. He openly talked about the Hugo Selenski case, his role in it, his plea agreement that he admitted to killing, or for his role in killing 2 people and burning their bodies in a pit. And he also talked about his experience with being represented by public defenders, conflict lawyers, private lawyers, the difference in the representation of public defenders, conflict lawyers, and private lawyers. And interesting, he also talked about the prison food. So Patrick Russin, he is a talker. Again, I had 2 hours with him, about 2 hours, and we talked about a variety of issues.
And I mean, you mentioned the gruesome Hugo Selenski case that he was a part of, but 2 hours, you could talk to him about a variety of topics. I mean, the public defense lawyer system right there, that's a lengthy conversation that you can get into the details about. His personal case, depending on how much he wanted to share, can also go for quite a long time. Did you expect this to go for 2 hours?
I expected in my interviewing prior inmates who are jailed at the Luzerne County Correctional Facility, in prior interviews that I've done, usually they're about an hour, and they're on a telephone through glass. This was my second interview face-to-face with an inmate there. But I didn't expect 2 hours, no, I expected an hour, but the prison allowed me there 2 hours. I could have spent 3 hours with him.
And so coming back with 2 hours worth of material talking to him, how do you go about figuring out what's the most important thing for the Sunday story to inform the readers about?
Well, right off the bat, I went in with an outline. Mr. Russin wanted to talk about the legal representation, so we started the interview with that. And then it sort of morphed into the prison food, because he said he was hungry, and he talked about the prison food there and how bad it is. And then we ended the interview talking about his involvement with Hugo Selenski.
And so he also has an ongoing case right now that you've also been covering in terms of his sentencing and everything like that. Where is he with that case, and how much more can they expect to be seeing his names in the reporting that you do just from the court coverage?
Yeah, Patrick Russin, he's currently facing resisting arrest charges out of Dallas Township Police, and that's why he's here. That's why he's jailed at the County Correctional Facility, and he's been in court 3 or 4 times within the last 3 or 4 months. So, being covering the courthouse, I would see him on when the sheriff deputies walk him out and bring him in. So we developed some type of rapport, so to speak, on his short walk to and from the courtroom in the basement of the courthouse. So in the last 2 times, he asked me if I was interested in going over to interview him. So I took advantage of his request, and I was surprised he asked that, because he's never talked to the media before. Ever since 2001, when other reporters like myself tried to get interviews with him, he's always refused. But this was the first time he openly talked about not only Hugo Selenski, about his own experience being in prison and being represented by the different level of defense lawyers.
I mean, high-profile case, but also, like you mentioned, the defense lawyers. You've been in the courts covering various cases for years now. What have you seen with the public defense system that's been going on right now?
Yeah, Pat does raise a very, very good point, valid point regarding public defenders. I've seen public defenders, they're overworked, tremendously overworked. Their first time, and this is what Pat raised, and I've seen it with my own eyes, is public defenders, because of their caseloads, they don't have the time to individually meet with their clients. Many times I've seen public defenders calling out their clients' names in courtroom because they don't know what they look like. They've never met them. And this is, again, what Pat Russin, I've seen it. The morning of their client's court case is the first time they're meeting with their public defender. That's a problem, and that's what Patrick Russin raises.
And that's a very valid concern and points at some issues that, like you said, the overworked defense system needs to deal with. But over 2 decades of Pat Russin not talking to the media in any form, why do you think he wanted to now?
He's much older nowadays. He's 55. Back when the Hugo Selenski story broke in June of 2003, June 5th of that year, he was in his early 20s, or early 30s. I'm sorry, early 30s. He was a co-defendant, but at the same time, he was a witness for the district attorney's office. So I'm sure they told him not to talk to the media. But that for him, he served his time for his role in two homicides. He served his time. He served nearly a decade in prison. So my guess, he's publicly, for the first time, he's talking about the Hugo Selenski case because he's much older and much wiser.
And you talked to him for 2 hours, variety of topics. It's going to be a lengthy story on our front page of our Sunday edition, but I'm sure there's going to be opportunity for some follow-ups from some other things that you talked about that you just couldn't potentially get to just because of how long you got to talk to him for.
Yeah, 2 hours interview with Pat. Again, I only expected an hour. He did invite me back to go talk to him again, which I'm hoping to do, willing to do. But right now he's in federal custody because he had a federal drug case that he was sentenced on in December of 2025. He's here at the Luzerne County Correctional Facility because he's facing those resisting arrest charges out of Dallas Township. But if that case is continued, and which he's in court on April 20th, the Monday, the day after the story is going to be published. If his trial is continued, then he's going to go back into federal custody, and he'll be at a federal prison somewhere, probably in the northeast part of the country. So
we have a big story coming out Sunday. We'll see if Ed gets another opportunity to talk to Patrick Russin based off how his court date goes on Monday. You got to talk to him for a long time, plethora of issues from public defense system to the state of the prison food and the building to his ongoing court cases and everything that's been going on for over 2 decades. I guess, just last thing, what do you want to leave the people that are going to be reading this story with?
Yeah, again, Patrick Russin, he's a convicted murderer, but he's been in many different types of prisons, state prison and county prisons. Our county correctional facility, he says, is the worst. Designed, it's dangerous not only for inmates but also for the corrections officers that work there. It's a very dangerous place, and you have to take his word for it. He's been locked up there many times, but the county has been talking about building a new prison now for at least 30 years. You have to take what Mr. Russin is saying about how dangerous our county correctional facility is legit.
He has the experience to have seen it numerous times and for a long time, so that experience does say something in itself. Sunday, front page, exclusive story of a 2-hour interview with Ed Lewis talking to Patrick Russin. Make sure you buy that paper and read it. Thanks, everyone.